In terms of the quality assurance of the tests, how you're going to do how we're going to assure and ensure that it is full of quality is by integrating continuously, CI as what we call continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous development. If you don't do this, then you're going to fall apart. So even if you're delivering just again, going back to the shopping cart of the e-commerce website, you still are going to deliver the shopping cart by November, but that has to get integrated when you deliver for example, the catalog. So the catalog and shopping cart should work together. They should not work as separate things. So you've got the catalog, and when you select the items from the catalog and you say buy or add to cart, that should be linked and well integrated to the cart functionality. So it should be able to show all the items that you have selected in the cart. So that's called continuous integration. And then that has to be, again, going further into, let's say, February 2021, you need to add the ability to complete the order, to check out that cart. And then that should again be taken further into April when we have the make a payment. So all of these have to be working in tandem, in a proper, integrated, tightly coupled way. It should not be like, oh, this is different, this is different. No, you should not do like that. And that's why, in order to make sure all of these are working, even though you're delivering each of them in separate phases, but they should all work together better. And that's why we should have this continuous integration. Whatever we deliver continuously, we need to integrate. You need to make sure it is all working together, not just separate ones. And then for doing that, what is important is a version control and configuration management. So whatever you delivered back in, for example, in November, you delivered something, the catalog, the one that you're going to deliver and develop and deliver later in, for example, February, the shopping cart, the catalog, they should again work together. And then the payment processing should work together. And for that to happen, you might have made some changes in the code in this period of time. So you should understand which of the code blocks have got updated. What is the latest code? What is the latest functionality? Which feature has been released? So for that, it is important to have the version control. And that's why we've got this lot of tools out there. For example, you've got TFS, from Microsoft, Visual Studio.net, and then you've got some of the latest Eclipse, for example, is another IDE. All of these are different integrated development environment, IDE, integrated development environment. So it actually gives you kind of the platform for developers and the testers and the analysts to actually log in, check the code, check in, check out, like VSS, Virtual Source Safe, that we used to use before about 20 years ago. It still is the same concept where you check in, where you check out the code, you work on the code, and then you check it back in. So the latest code gets into the system, into the server. So anybody can look at the latest code any period of time. And when you're working, they cannot work. They cannot work on the same code because it gets locked. So that gives you a sense of integrity of the code. And again, like you've got a lot of these online collaborative version control things like GitHub, for example, is an amazing platform for agile development and coding. You must have a good idea if you're a developer. GitHub and this kind of Git, it is basically a kind of same configuration management tool, version control tool, but it's online. So you can actually log in from anywhere. It's on the cloud. So you can log in anytime from any device, from anywhere. And with your credentials, you can actually get the code, again, check out, check in, and then you can create a branch from there. You can release that branch. So there are a bit of that element there. We'll discuss each of these methods again in the coming weeks in detail. And then automated builds, again, the same. This is what I was talking about, the build just now. So the way you release that particular set of functionality, even though you've got, for example, catalog ready to be released and done in November, you would have the shopping cart in, let's say, February. You might have some changes in the way the catalog is designed. For example, you made some changes in the code based on the feedback from customers. So when you release, for example, the shopping cart in February, you also need to release some of the additional features and changes done on the catalog as to how you can add, how it looks and all that. So all these changes, you need to actually make sure that the latest changes are released in the new build that you deliver to the customers in February, along with the new feature that you're developing. So for that, that's where the they're actually talking about having the automation incorporated. That's where the DevOps, you might have heard about this term, which is very popular nowadays, called DevOps. Again, very important element there. We'll talk about DevOps briefly in this course. So I'll touch upon that. We'll talk a little bit about the DevOps as a concept, as a method, and its advantage and all that. And then in detail in November, I'll run a separate course, just like how we're going through the Agile one in October. We'll have a separate course for DevOps in November. And then we've got the change management, how you're going to accept the changes, work on the changes, releasing all of these, the feedback from the customers, the change requests, all of these, it's again key for making sure that the project is a success in Agile. So you still are doing, remember again, all of these activities are not new. That's what you've been doing in Waterfall for the last almost 50, 60 years of development, of software development. But still, the way you try and do these set of activities slightly differ. The techniques differ, the tools, the methodologies differ. So in terms of how you're structuring the teams, again, with Agile, it's all about time boxes. We're talking about iterations. We're talking about sprints, the 2-week, 4-week sprints, right? We were talking about that. So the 4-week sprint is actually is called a time box. So within this sprint, whatever you're trying to work on gets into the product. And then after that, if it's tested, if it's working fine, then you can release it right after that. You don't have to wait for 1 year, unlike the Waterfall. And then there's something called as a team meeting, daily team meeting. It's called stand-up, daily stand-up. So this daily stand-up or a Scrum meeting happens pretty much every day within the team. So you're actually kind of getting the updates from the team as to what they're working on, what are the problems that they potentially have, what did they work yesterday. So essentially it has got 3 parts. Every team member, for example, you've got developers, architects, analysts, Scrum Master, all of them just gather around the table, or they can actually have a call. And then what we discuss in that one is that we would give an update. Each of us would be like a round table. So each of us has got a turn to update the entire team so they know what we're up to. So I would say what I did yesterday. I would actually say what I have been working on today, or what I'm going to deliver by the end of today or tomorrow. And then I would also say if I have got any problems, any impediments, any hurdles that I have that is stopping me from my work, basically, any blockers is what we call. So I will explain all of this. I'll put forward all of these in the team meeting. So all of us, all the other team members know what I'm up to. So it's almost like a daily basis. So it's not like what I was talking about in the Waterfall, where I complete the requirements, spend 5 months on the requirements, and then the designer comes in. So the developers actually come in pretty late into the project, and the testers much later than the developers. So nobody has a clue what each is working on. And the customer doesn't absolutely have any clue what the team is working on, because we're only going to the customer after 1.5 years of the requirements in the Waterfall. But here with Agile, it's pretty much like, everyday FIRs where we know what each of us is working on. So we are aware of the problems. We're aware of how, if, for example, this would help us to understand what the next person is working on, so we can quickly jump in. If we have some time, if we have got the same knowledge, same background, whatever, we can help them so that the problem is resolved. So facilitation to remove the problems is very important. And then we use a lot of Kanban boards. So this is how we actually maintain the requirements in the Agile context. Again, we'll talk in very detail later. This actually is like a Kanban board. So here we could say on this side, we can have all like a backlog, all the things to do. This could be things that are in progress, or these set of 2 items could be things that are ready for review, and this is like a done. So if you see, it actually gives you a picture of how many tasks you have. 10. Or is it 10? Is it 9? Okay, let's say we've got 9 tasks in total. Out of the 9 tasks, we've got 3 that are still not touched, 3 are in progress, 3 are done and developed, and 2 are done and developed, and 1 is actually kind of deployed. It's already finished, deployed, and it's on the server, right? So you get a clear picture. These are called visual radiators, visual information radiators. So just one look at this would give pretty much every information about what's the status of this project. That's the reason why these Kanban boards are very efficient. Jira is a type of a Kanban board. Trello has got a Kanban board. TFS, all of these have got nowadays pretty much a good management tool, not just for the project manager, but for the team. And the advantage with Agile is it's not done by the project manager like in Waterfall. It's actually done. This is maintained by the developers themselves. The team does the updates. The team estimate, remember, team estimate, team does the development and the work, team does the planning, team owns up, team deliver, and team update. Team does the update of the board and what's happening. So it's a very, very relevant and makes it current. You don't have to wait for 3 months for knowing what is the state of the project. And then you've got the burn down chart, again, a technique in Agile, which actually shows you the current status of the effort that is expected to be done, and then what is the effort in terms of what has been already done, the spent effort. So it's called burn down chart. Again, very important tool for the understanding the how the work is progressing. And retrospective and sprint retrospective, sprint reviews. Again, all of these are actually called ceremonies. Sprint planning happens before the sprint. Sprint execution happens as the sprint is working. That's called sprint execution. The development work and the analysis and the design and the architecture, that's actual sprint execution. And then there's once the sprint is completed, which is after the end of 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever your time box is. After the end of the sprint, you actually do a kind of a review of how the sprint happened. What is the output? What is the outcome of that particular sprint? You show it to the customer, and then you can have a showcase or a demonstration to the customer at the end of that. And if they say, fair enough, then we can push it out. And then you also have something called as a retrospective, which is actually kind of looking back and understanding if 3 questions, again, 3 aspects. What went very well in the sprint? So the team actually discusses what did we really do well in the sprint in terms of the processes, the work, the tasks. And then the second point is what did not go well? What is it that we messed up with? And then the third one is how can we improve on this in the next sprint so that we don't repeat this? What are the kind of lessons learned, the best practices? So those are the 3 things that you actually discuss in the retrospective. So understand the sprint review is about the product review. You're trying to develop. That's called the sprint review. And then sprint retrospective is the process. What is the process involved in the whole sprint execution? So it is about the activities that we did. So you, again, just like the stand-up, in the stand-up meeting, we discussed what did we do yesterday, what are we going to do today, what are we going to work on today, and what are the problems, impediments, blockers, whatever you have, the hurdles. So you discuss those 3 things in the sprint, in the daily Scrum or daily stand-up meeting amongst the team that happens every day. Whereas the sprint retrospective is about the sprint that happened just now. And then all the team talks about 3 aspects. What did we do really well? What is the thing, what went really bad? Or what are the areas of improvement? Where did we mess up? And the third important thing is what are the lessons learned? How can we improve our processes so that we don't repeat those blunders again? These are things that are done every sprint, every iteration. You know why Agile works? Because of this, because it's a continuous improvement. You're not really discussing at the end of the project after 1.5 years or 2 years, but you're doing it pretty much after every 2 weeks. So you know you're constantly improving. That's called inspection. Again, one of the fundamental rules of Agile is inspection, adaptation, improvement. Inspection, adaptation, improvement. So that's the 3 pillars of Agile. We're going to discuss that next week in detail, but remember that this is the most important foundation for Agile. It's all about doing something quickly. Just do it. Don't worry about whether it's perfect or not. Just do it. And then you try and improve on that, change that. And then again, try and learn something from that. So that's the cycle. That's a continuous cycle of improvement that you have within the context of Agile. And then the program or portfolio, we've talked about the Scrum. Scrum is for a product, for developing, for example, in the context of the Agile development, the e-commerce website for selling mobile accessories, the example we are working on. In that thing, so you have that as a project. That is called one project, let's say. There is a product that you're developing on. But then if you look at it, the overall one, It could potentially be just one aspect or one small part in the entire program of this company. The company would perhaps like to have a SAP module built on the back of that to enable this order processing. So there's an SAP module which they're working on. Then they could potentially be working on integrating a CRM, the customer relationship management module, where they can get all the information about their customers into that, something like a Salesforce. So the Salesforce integration could be a third project, and the fourth project could be something else completely different. It is nothing to do with technology. It's about improving their business. So if you look at it, so that's the portfolio, that's a program. And within that program, we've got different other projects. So within each project, we can have Agile done, Agile implemented, and then we can have the overall program managed in a much better way. And that's why that is called program or Scrum of Scrums. We've got a lot of other technologies, other methodologies nowadays. It's called SAFE, Scaled Agile Framework, or you can also have DSDM, the Dynamic Systems Development Model. All of these are scaled models. They're for the large enterprises, for big teams, whereas Scrum is for a small team. Scrum cannot be implemented for a team which is like 20, 30 people. Scrum works really well for a team about 5 to 10 people. If you've got that kind of a size, it's an optimal size. If you get more than that, if you've got, let's say, 15 people, then they say that break the team into 2, 8 and 7, and then have 2 scrums.